Good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to formally start the meeting. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending this virtual licensing panel on Tuesday, the 9th of February 2021. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Councillor James Flannery, and I am the chair of this panel. Attending virtually are Councillors Jackie Alty and Alan Ogilvie, who will also be sitting on the panel. We also have officers in attendance at the Civic Centre. The applicant and the registered objectors will also be attending virtually. Please note, due to the current restrictions, this will be a hybrid meeting with only myself as chair and required officers permitted to attend the Civic Centre. All other participants are attending virtually through Microsoft Teams. The meeting is being recorded and the stream will also be live on YouTube. The web address for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting and can be found on the Council's website. Individuals attending virtually are asked to keep their microphones on mute and only unmute when they are invited to speak. To indicate you wish to speak, please use your raise your hand function or let our moderator know by indicating on the chat. The hearing will proceed as follows. Our licensing officer, Chris Ward, will briefly outline the application. The applicant will be invited to put forward any information in support of their application, including the calling of witnesses. They will have 10 minutes to make their representations. The objectors and their representatives, the panel, and any other responsible authority may ask questions of the applicant, witnesses, and/or their representatives. The objectors who have registered to speak will be invited in turn to put forward any information in support of their application, including the calling of witnesses. They will have 10 minutes also to make their representations. The applicant and their representatives, the panel, and any other responsible authority may ask questions of the objectors, witnesses, and/or their representatives. I will ask our licensing officer, Chris Ward, to read out the remaining written representations from objectors who have not registered to speak. I will then ask the applicant, in light of the representations, if they wish to amend the application. The panel will only consider the application laid before it during decision making. I will then invite the objectors to sum up. I will then invite the applicant to sum up. The licensing authority legal representatives will be asked if there are any other matters to be raised or resolved before the hearing is closed for deliberations. The public and applicant will be excluded from the meeting at this point as we enter deliberations, and the YouTube stream will end. The applicant and any interested parties will be issued with a notice of decision 5 working days after this hearing. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting in several minutes and try to resolve the issue. If this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Please can I ask all attendees to confirm they can see, hear and speak before the meeting begins. I will now call out each member. So first, can I ask Councillor Jackie Alty to confirm?
I can hear and see.
Thanks, Jackie. Councillor Alan Ogilvie.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I can see and hear.
Thanks, Alan. And the applicant, Daniel Hindle. Bring it on mute, Daniel.
Yeah, I can hear everything.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. And the objectors who have registered to speak, Peter Flynn.
Yeah, I can hear.
Thanks, Peter. Megan O'D.
Yeah, I can hear and see.
Thanks, Megan. And Erica Brown.
Yeah, I can hear and see.
Thanks, Erica. And our officers, Chris Ward, licensing officer.
Yes, hear and see.
Thanks, Chris. Tasneen Safdar, our legal representative.
Yes, Chair, present.
Thanks, Taz. Ruth Remington, Democratic Services and Member Services Team Leader.
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ruth. And Ben.storey, Democratic Services Assistant.
Yes, Chair.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, everyone has confirmed, and we're going to formally open the meeting. Thank you, everyone, so far. First item, apologies. Any apologies received?
No apologies.
Thanks, Ben. You sounded like Taz. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Thank you very much. Item number 3, full variation application for Indigo. Can I please ask our licensing officer, Chris, to briefly outline the application? Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, everybody. The hearing today is to deal with an application first submitted on the 21st of December 2020 by Mr. Daniel Hindle for a full variation application pursuant to section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 for the premises known as Indigo, 1A Fleetwood Street, Leyland, PR25 3NL. I can confirm that the application has been advertised via a notice on the premises for 28 days. It's been advertised in a local newspaper and it's been on the council's website, fully compliant with the requirements of the Licensing Act 2003. The premises has been currently licensed for around 2 years. It was previously subject to a hearing in January 2019 to determine the original application following public objections and some objections from relevant authorities. The premises currently consists of a first floor premises which is situated on the junction of Chapel Brow and Fleetwood Street. The premises licence was granted originally with additional conditions, notably to this application the requirement for door staff at the premises on a Friday and Saturday evening. The current opening hours for the premises are as follows: 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and 12 p.m. Friday and Saturday. The current licence can be found attached to this report as background document 1 or on page 39 of the agenda pack. Within Mr. Hindle's original application, he's asked for the following to be varied on the licence: to extend the premises into the premises directly underneath the premises on the ground floor, incorporating the premises below, formerly licensed by this authority as the Curious Cafe, creating a 2-level premises. The premises will have a new entrance to be situated on Chapel Brow, and it's located next to other takeaways and other licensed premises within Chapel Brow. He's asked for the supply of alcohol and opening times to be extended to 11 in the morning till 12 at night, Sunday to Thursday, and Friday and Saturday, 11 in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning. He's also asked for, originally in the application, for the door staff, the requirement of door staff to be risk assessed. Following the application, we've received representations. There's actually been no representations received by responsible authorities in respect to the application, but conditions have been agreed with the Council's Environmental Health Department, mainly with reference to restricting the use of the public entrance currently situated on Fleetwood Street to mitigate any public noise nuisance with allowing the extra timings. Please see Appendix 2 of the report or page 17 of the agenda pack for a list of those conditions. Also, although the police have not objected to the application, an updated dispersal policy was required before they would be satisfied that, in their opinion, the application would not undermine the licensing objectives of crime and disorder. This dispersal policy can be found as Appendix 1 of the report, page 15 of the agenda pack. Mr. Hindle has also stated that he would be happy to limit the sale of alcohol to 15 minutes before the closing time to create an adequate drink-up time to aid with his safe dispersal. There's been 6 representations received from other parties. These mainly quote: the variation of the licence, if granted as applied for, would cause public nuisance and crime and disorder. In particular, noise from people leaving the premises. The increase in closing times will cause more disturbance to people leaving the premises. The removal of door staff, causing issues with dispersal of customers smoking on Fleetwood Street, and residue from customers discarding cigarettes. Noise from regulated entertainment at the premises, and drugs being consumed in back streets and urinating behind people's properties. These representations can be found attached to the report as Appendices 3 to 8. Following these representations, Mr. Hindle has taken a decision to change his application and withdraw the request to remove the condition for door staff, and he will keep the requirement for door staff to be in place. He's happy to keep the door staff in place as he feels this will appease residents' concerns within their representations. This can be found attached to the report as a supplementary agenda labelled door staff email. He's also submitted a written response to the representations received. He's tried to address each representation individually. This can also be found as a supplementary agenda labelled within the reports pack. The applicant following this will now be invited to provide any information in support of his application and call any witnesses in support of the application. The applicant and his witnesses can call any interested party, can be asked by any interested party and any member of the panel. Any interested party will then be asked to come forward and put forward their representations. They can call any witness in support of their representation. This will be done as a request to come forward by the chair. Any interested parties or their witnesses may be questioned by the applicant or any members of the panel. The licensing panel are asked to determine the application under section 35 of the Licensing Act 2003, taking into account any legislation and guidance set out throughout the report on pages 5 and 6. The options available to the committee are: grant the variation of the licence set out in the application, modify the application through conditions on the licence, and reject the whole part of the application. And as confirmed previously by the chair, the application will be confirmed within a decision notice within 5 days of the hearing. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for that, Chris. Okay. Additional written representation from the applicant has been provided and can be found within the supplementary agenda entitled Additional Representation from the Applicant. Can I please invite the applicant, Mr. Hindle, to put forward any information in support of his application? Over to you, Daniel. You're on mute, yeah.
Yeah, it keeps going to mute for some reason. I'm not sure. As far as I can see, the moving of the door onto Chapel Brow can only be beneficial to the residents of Fleetwood Street. There will be no entry or exit from Fleetwood Street apart from during the day or in the early evening on quiet nights. It just gives us a bit of flexibility to operate the two floors separately. Nobody will be smoking on Fleetwood Street. I don't see any reason why anybody will go onto Fleetwood Street to have a cigarette when they would just stand on Chapel Brow at the front of the premises. The application really is being made. It's only to bring us in line with other licensed premises in the town, which have at least a 1 AM licence, 2 of which are within 2 minutes walk of Fleetwood Street, and 2 more within 5 minutes walk of Fleet Street. Chapel Brow is a busy commercial street in the town, heavily populated by takeaway food outlets. The customers of the other bars will naturally gravitate to Chapel Brow for late night food, regardless of our closing time. The street will always be busy late at night. I can only say that we've operated for 2 years with that entrance on the street and we've not had any complaints. I don't see how it could get any worse now with it being on the front. And we will carry on running the place as we've always run it. And we'll do our best. We're always available to speak to residents. I've given certain residents my phone number. They know where we are. If they're not happy with anything, they're more than welcome to come in and see me, and that has always been the case. We've never had any complaints from anybody while we've been there. I can only react to complaints I hear about. That's about the gist of the application. The rest of it is in front of you. That's about all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Okay, do any of the panel members have any questions to the applicant, please? Jackie, over to you.
Hi, just a brief question. You've mentioned that the doorway onto Fleetwood Street won't be used other than for early evening, but that's not what it states in the pack. It mentions that if the lower ground isn't used, it'll be open until 10:30 in the evening, and also that it'll be used for egress and ingress or in emergency situations. So it's kind of counterintuitive that...
What I will say, that was only put in later on, and that is only on a Tuesday and a Wednesday evening. The exact reason for that is, and I don't actually foresee it happening, But on a Tuesday night, when we can sometimes only take 30 or 40 quid, and there's half a dozen people want to watch football, I don't want to have to open downstairs and staff downstairs. Tuesday and Wednesday nights are really quiet and won't cause any nuisance to anybody if it was used on those nights. And they're the only 2 nights that is on the application for it to be used. Apart from that, it will never be used.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Jackie, are you okay with the response?
I'm fine with that one. Could I just ask, you stated, I think, 2, if not 3 times that you've never had any complaints.
Yeah.
Is that written complaints or verbal complaints?
Neither.
Neither. Okay, thank you.
I've had one, non-directly to me. One resident in particular has harassed my cleaner and one of my bar staff, but nobody's ever been to me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Alan, would you like to come in now, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just sort of following on from the question that Jackie's asked, in relation to the Fleetwood Street exit, the dispersal policy which the police asked for states that will never be used. So somewhere in the pack there is a contradiction that needs to be corrected. The other question I've got really is on the door staff. Can you tell me what kind of training do these people undergo? How often do they undergo any training? And what sort of turnover of door staff do you have? And similarly, with the duty general manager, who is ultimately responsible for complying with the licensing conditions, what sort of training and experience do those general managers have?
Our door staff is run by a company called Barbican, who I'm sure licensing are very familiar with. They're all SIA registered. How often they have to be retrained or how often they reapply for the badge, I'm not sure. But they're a recognised company. Licensing will vouch for them. As for the general manager is me. I'm there every weekend. I'm there most nights as well. I've had 9 years running the railway in Leyland, catering for 500 people, up to 500 people on a late night licence with no complaints whatsoever. We've had another 2 years there with no complaints. I'm there all the time. I don't farm it out to a manager or leave it with bar manager or young bar staff. It all falls on my shoulders.
Okay, thanks for that, Daniel. Alan, are you okay with the response?
Yeah, I've just one further query to add to that. On the issue of capacity, there's different numbers mentioned in the report: 100, 120. I think the optimum seems to be 120. I'd just be interested in how do you control 120 as being the maximum capacity?
The door staff have clickers and they click people in and out. When they come 8:30, they count the number of people in, they click out, click back in. When we're full, we turn people away.
Okay. Alan, are you okay with that?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Chair. That's all for just now.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for your responses, Daniel. Before I bring any objectors in, does anyone else have any other questions for Daniel? Peter, is that you? Have you got any questions before I bring you in anyway? You got a question for Daniel, please?
Who's that, me?
Well, you've got your hand up, Peter, yeah?
Yeah, if I may. I think there's actually a conflict in the paperwork side of things, that the environmental health states that the door on Fleetwood Street during the week will be shut at 10:30. Yet there's a request for licensing up till 12 o'clock. How will that work? Do they get locked in?
We shut it off. Yeah.
10:30, is it?
Yeah.
Wait, okay.
We never stay open till midnight. I don't know if we had it before. We used to shut at 10:30 anyway.
Well, that's the request on your application, up till midnight, isn't it? Sunday to Thursday.
Yeah, it just gives flexibility in case we ever need to use it. But it would never be using that side entrance. If we needed that, we would use the front entrance.
Yeah. Okay, Danny, one thing, the current licence is actually for 120 patrons, yeah? Page 43 refers to that on the conditions of licensing. Having studied the plans, would you agree it's realistic to say that the lower bar will hold at least 40 people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's about 55 seats. We've not had a number put on downstairs, so...
I'll go on to, and technically then, on a good Friday and Saturday, you could have up to 170 punters in the establishment.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the bases of our concerns as residents is, you know, I know you've got 2 door staff on, but on a good Friday and Saturday, you could have 100 up to 170 people leaving and congregating in the area, couldn't you? Would you agree to that?
Well, they don't all leave at once, do they? In any premises, you don't get just a mass exodus of people. They drift off naturally. You know, even when we had 120 people in, 120 people didn't suddenly appear on Fleetwood Street.
No, I'm just trying to paint a worst case scenario, because obviously if people are allowed to drink till 1 o'clock, you know, they are going to be in high spirits, aren't they? I certainly would if I've been drinking.
In my experience, within the last hour, people drift away anyway. You're left with less than half of that number when you close.
Peter, Daniels, can I just come in, please, as chair? Peter, could you just present the questions, please, and then wait, and then we'll give Daniel a chance to respond, if that's okay. Just so it brings us some order to the proceedings. Thank you.
Yeah, fine. All right, and my next question will be, in 2019, you agreed that you would be happy with a midnight licensing Friday and Saturday and 11 o'clock weekdays. Page 23 of the document refers. May I ask why you want the additional hours extension?
Because
Daniel, just as chair, just wait until I bring it in. Okay, thanks, Peter. Daniel, would you like to respond, please?
Like I said before, I just want to bring us in line with the other bars in the area.
Fine, thank you.
I don't want, you know, my customers leaving earlier to go to get another hour at the place 2 minutes down the road or 2 minutes across the road.
Okay, thanks for that, Daniel. Peter, any more questions from you?
Yeah, the final one is, you know, obviously the introduction of the door on Chapel Brow will be a bonus to the residents of Fleetwood Street. May I ask why it can't be used on a nightly basis to allow people in? If you just said there you only get, you know, 30 to 40 quid's worth of people coming in, wouldn't it be prudent just to open the bottom bar and leave the top bar shut?
Because sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, all right. Thanks, Peter. Go on, Daniel, you're back in. Thank you for that.
Because we've no televisions downstairs. If people want to watch football, it's just upstairs.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
Thanks, Daniel. Peter, are you okay with the response?
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
thank you. And there's no one else indicating to speak. So thanks for that, Daniel. Appreciate it. Right, okay. Can I please invite Peter to come back in, please, to forward any further information in support of his objection. Peter's written representation can be found on page 21 of the agenda pack, with further documents provided within supplementary agenda to follow an updated version of the objector's letter. So, Peter, can I invite you in, please? Thank you.
Certainly. Can I speak? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just give a brief, what I think is a summary and resume of all the points that have been brought up, from my perspective. In my original representation, I stated that there was and always will be a conflict of interest in this situation, where a licensed premises is situated into such very close proximity to so many residential properties, both on Chapel Brow and Fleetwood Street. And I stated at the time that the way ahead lies in some form of compromise between all parties. The following conditions are welcomed by the residents and will hopefully be included in the conditions of the new licence. Retention of the door staff on Friday and Saturdays, moving the smoking area onto Chapel Brow, and Fleetwood in effect has become a no-go zone for patrons as a result of Gillian Strike's Senior Environmental Health Office condition of licensing that she's introduced. I was disappointed to see that the Fleetwood Street door would still be in use for 5 days of the week, Sunday to Thursday, when the bar dispersal policy states that all egress from the building would be through the new Chapel Brow entrance. However, as Mr. Hindle points out, the patrons will be more inclined to drift away from the bar over the course of the evenings on these days, Sunday to Thursday, and they will not be able to congregate outside on any time on Fleetwood Street. In 2019, both Mr. Hindle and the residents came to an informal compromise and accepted the current licensing hours as being reasonable to both parties to reduce the impact on the residents' way of lives, in particular at closing time. I accept Mr. Hindle's comment that there is no direct noise line between the entrance on Chapel Brow and the residents of Fleetwood Street. However, on Friday and Saturday nights, when there could be realistically over 100 patrons, possibly in drink, leaving the premises at 1 o'clock in the morning, congregating in groups, talking, waiting for taxis, etc., in the area of Fleetwood Street and Chapel Brow, which could result in disturbance to the residents. To that end, I would ask the committee to retain the current licensing hours to minimise disturbance to the potentially 25 residential properties on Chapel Brow and Fleetwood Street. I would like to add, Mr. Hindle is a professional and experienced nighttime operator who has invested greatly into this revenue to provide patrons with a nice bar. And I can fully understand he wants to maximise his revenue by extending the licensing hours. However, I would ask you to consider the impact of this from the residents' perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Does anyone have any questions? Back to Peter, please. Starting with our panel members.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Alan Ogilvie, you've indicated to speak. Alan, and you come.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. In the paperwork, it mentions that as part of the first application in 2018, that the music would be at a level that was acceptable to the residents. Did any contact or communication between Mr. Hindle and the residents actually take place in relation to the level of noise from the music?
Okay, thanks, Alan. I've got a question to you, Peter.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay, is that all right, Alan?
Yeah, that's fine, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for that. So, okay, thanks everyone. I would like now to bring in Megan O'Day, please, to put forward any information to support of her objection. Megan's written representation can be found on page 33 of the agenda pack. So, Megan, over to you.
Thank you. Just a quick question to Danny. Danny, what are the other bars that you're referring to? I know you're talking about the Queen's. What's the other one?
Thanks, Megan. Okay, Daniel.
The Queen's has a 1 o'clock licence. The new Roundabout Bar has a 1:30 licence. Wetherspoons has a 1 o'clock licence. Bar 55 has a 1 o'clock licence.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Megan, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. The only thing I just want to say on that is, I suppose, from my point of view, you know, none of them are at the end of our street. So the Queen's, we can hear music from the Queen's. It is very loud. So sometimes we can hear music from yours, but we can also hear from the Queen's as well. So what I'm saying there is it's not just your place that we have to deal with as well. But yeah, the Queen's, you can't really compare it because it's not at the end of our street.
Okay. Megan, are you going to present any further information, or is that your question to Daniel?
no, that was it really. Just to sum up, I suppose that I've got a brand new baby who is sleeping in the front room that is directly opposite Indigo. So for me, I'm really anxious now. You know, it's like having a new baby anyway. The sleepless night as it is. So that's my major concern at the moment. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Okay, Megan, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to bring in Erica Brown, please. Erica. Erica, I think you muted.
Sorry, just with my mute button there. In your statement, Danny, you say that you can't hear a sound come out of coming out of your club, and then in the next sentence you go on to likening the noise to passing traffic. I live next door to that, and I can just assure you it is louder than passing traffic, and I can't sleep. I just think with moving the doorways, I think you're just transferring problems from Fleetwood Street to Chapel Brow. People would argue that there's less people there, but I believe there are plans to put 6 flats in TSB, so I think we need to take those people into consideration. And lastly, it says there's 20 metres away from the nearest house, and my gable end house is an alleyway from the premises. And I just want to urge the committee to take our points of view into consideration, as it's the people of Fleetwood Street that have to live with the consequences or not. Thank you.
Okay, Erica, thanks for that. I'm just going to bring Taz in, please. Taz.
Thank you, Chair. Just one point that I had to make in respect of this planning application that you referred to. Obviously, that is a planning matter. It's not for something for the Licensing Committee to take into account. So I just wanted to obviously advise the panel in respect to that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Taz. And Erica, I'll just assure you that the panel members, considering everything today, will be done on a very fair and equitable basis. So we take your point. Thank you. Has anyone got any questions back from Erica's points, please? Okay, thanks everyone so far. Thanks for your contribution so far. I'd just like to ask Chris to come back in, please, and read out the remaining written representations from the objectors who have not registered to speak today. So, Chris, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, so read Appendix 3 first, which is on page 19. Variation of the licence, 1A Fleetwood Street, Leyland, Indigo Bar. This is from 5 Fleetwood Street, Leyland, and it's a Mr. Senior. I'm writing concerning the application to raise my objections to the following. Opening hours. The request to increase the opening hours on a Friday and Saturday to 1 o'clock hours, Sunday and weekdays till midnight. This will result in a lot of customers leaving the bar in the early hours. Problems with customers who have been drinking in the early hours, congregating and making noise, and taxis turning up to collect them. This would be unacceptable and cause a disturbance to the residents of Chapel Brow, Fleetwood Street. And then under door staff, the removal of door staff will mean that customers leaving in the early hours, they won't be shepherded away from the local area. This will compound the problem when customers leave in the early hours. As a resident, I believe there is a fundamental right to live a quiet life without disturbance from revellers. If I move on to the second one, which is Appendix 5, that's from 13 Fleetwood Street. Variation of the licence, 1A Fleetwood Street, 23 Chapel Brow, Leyland, Indigo Bar. We are writing in response to the new application for an increase in capacity, increase in opening hours, and the decrease in supervision to customers entering and leaving the premises by door staff. We'd like to remind you that it's only been 2 years since the above-mentioned business owner, Mr. Hindle, agreed to amend his application because of the impact it would have on the residents. We feel that our position and that the residents has not changed, and any of the new proposals will have the same impact on us. Even though the entrance to the bar will be located on Chapel Brow, there is no provision for a dedicated smoking area that can be located far enough from the residents. This applies especially in the summer months when customers will congregate for longer periods of time to smoke and chat. Also on the occasion when customers, when they can get away with it, have brought drinks out of the bar with them. As you can imagine, the consumption of alcohol reduces inhibitions and customers outside do become noisier. In addition, there has been incidents of customers being outside and using the alleyway on Fleetwood Street as unofficial toilets. The extension of opening hours, along with the increase in customers as a result of the increase in size of the bar, will result in many more customers leaving the bar much later in the early hours, and this is not a pleasant thought. The increase in numbers of customers allowed into the bar for longer periods of opening will further compound this problem. We feel the existing licence conditions, opening and closing hours, should be maintained. We as residents have to endure the impact of the premises on our lives. We were previously told that the street would be kept clean, however the measures put in place have proved inadequate. The street is left dirty with smoking materials, chewing gum stuck all over the road, discarded delivery notes and caps from beer kegs left after deliveries. We understand that Mr Hindle no longer wishes to provide door staff. This was a measure put in place by himself to keep order, and customers would disperse in minimal impact upon residents, especially at night when they were leaving the premises. We urge this measure is kept in place for the benefit of the residents. I would also ask to consider the points we have raised in this letter, particularly the effects of increasing customers, increasing licensing hours, removal of door staff. Thank you for your consideration. T&K Ribchester. And then the final one of the three representations can be found in Appendix 7 on page 35. I refer to the above notice made by Daniel Hindle and wish to lodge my objections to his intentions on the following grounds. Requirements of door staff. The notice states that Mr Hindle intends to risk assess the requirement of door staff, which suggests that they can be removed. This would be totally unacceptable, as part of their duties was to clear the area of customers after closing time. The premises are less than 10 metres from a residential area. Properties in Fleetwood Street have a large number of people, many of them in drink, congregate on the streets, and it's a major concern this may lead to antisocial behaviour. Provisions for smokers. While the entrance of the premises will be on Chapel Brow, smokers will inevitably congregate round the corner on Fleetwood Street, particularly inclement weather which may seek the shelter of inset in the doorway. Side doorway. This would lead to excessive noise in the early hours, which again will disturb the residents, many of which have to work in the morning. Also, there will be a litter problem with discarded cigarette butts littering the streets, as this has happened in the past. And then on to opening hours. The notice refers to the times. It is intended to serve alcohol. Cording last orders at 1 AM on a Friday and Saturday will mean many of the customers will be leaving the establishment at a time approaching 2 AM and congregating at the end of the street while they wait for transport home. Again, this is totally unreasonable for the above reasons and shows no consideration for the residents of Fleetwood Street and Chapel Brow. That's John Bolton, 7 Fleetwood Street. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So in light of these representations, does the applicant wish to amend the application? The panel will only consider the application laid before it during the decision. So Daniel, do you wish to amend or not, or carry on? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. We've amended the door staff, obviously. The issues with the side door seem to be causing a bit of confusion. I don't realistically see us using it hardly at all, to be honest. It's just there in case we need to just make the business a bit more adaptable. And it would only be used on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. There is no other night when downstairs would not be open. And whenever downstairs is open, the front door will be used. Downstairs may well be open Tuesday and Wednesday as well. We'll have to see how business is. Certainly when we first open, downstairs will be open, but if business isn't great, we might just want to open upstairs on those quiet nights. Like I've said previously, if it causes issues with the residents, they've only to come and see me. And at the end of the day, there is provision within the licensing law to have licenses reviewed. You know, if people complain, causing too many problems.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Daniel. So the application stands as is before us. That's just confirm that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to bring Taz in for a moment, please. Taz.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Hindle, it's just in respect of the actual dispersal policy that you've actually submitted. I think a number of people have already said that within that dispersal policy there is reference to say that the customers will only be able to exit the premises onto Chapel Brow. And then obviously there's also a condition which Environmental Health have proposed, which indicates that there would be the use of Fleetwood Street. So I'm just concerned around that, really, in terms of the conditioning around that, because in your dispersal policy you stipulate that the customers will only use the Chapel Brow exit, but within the actual conditions that have been agreed with Environmental Health, there is a stipulation in there that obviously the Fleetwood entrance will be used. I know there are conditions which have been put forward. So in light of that, I'm just thinking in terms of how do we actually deal with that? Are you looking to amend that element of the actual dispersal policy, or do we need to tighten the actual condition that's been proposed?
Okay, thanks, Taz. Daniel, back to you.
With the dispersal policy, what I will say, and maybe I've got the dispersal policy wrong, but in my mind, I was really concentrated on Friday and Saturday nights when there are big numbers in. The rest of the week, as I'm sure the residents will say, you wouldn't even know the club was open, the bar was open half the time. There's that few people in. So when I was putting the dispersal policy together, it was predominantly for Friday and Saturday nights, not Tuesday nights when the side entrance was going to be open. However, if we need to amend that dispersal policy to mention, you know, the Fleetwood Street entrance on a Tuesday night, we will amend it. But I was only thinking about busy nights when I did that dispersal policy.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Okay, Taz, you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So from what I can gather, what you're saying is potentially we could look to, or you could look to actually amend this policy if the committee decided to grant on the application that is before them, or or conditioned it in some way. So I mean that can be done at any time, but I just wanted to pick that up really, because obviously that's something that a number of people have raised this afternoon. Thank you. Okay,
thanks, Taz. Okay, Daniel, you okay with that?
Yeah, if we need to do a separate dispersal policy to cover when just that entrance is being used, that's fine. Like I said before, it didn't enter my mind that we would need it. I wasn't thinking about a Tuesday night when I put that together. Okay, so we'll deal with that. Okay, thanks very much for that, Daniel. Thanks, Taz. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the objectors are, you need to sum up, please. So I'm going to take it in the same order. So Peter first, then Megan, then Erica, please. So Peter, just sum up, please, an abstract. Any comments, final comments from you, please. Peter first.
No, I think actually what I read was, basically a summary of what my representation was. I don't think I've got anything to add. Just one thing, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go on, Peter.
Actually, on the existing licence, and the terms and conditions within it. And if you turn to page 39, paragraph F, it's just something that I've noticed. It does say that the club can playing of recorded music outdoors between Wednesday and Sunday. Now, I know that's never going to happen. We're never going to end up with an umpire band outside, but I just think that it possibly shouldn't be included within the terms of the licence, outdoor music. Could you make...
Okay, Peter, thanks. I'm just going to bring Taz in again on that one before we go to Megan, please. Taz.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, the actual application doesn't refer to the recorded music elements, so it's not something that the panel can actually deal with this afternoon.
Okay, Peter, did you hear that?
So what's the course of action? I mean, I know there's never going to be live music outdoors, but what's the next thing? Do I write to licensing to say it might be a bit of a faux pas, Matt? I'm sure Danny's not going to be putting music outside. But...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Just let us just ask again. We'll just ask Taz one just to conclude that one.
Thank you, Chair. So in respect of your question, Mr. Flynn, again, I will reiterate that is not a matter for the panel to deal with this afternoon. Now, if there were any issues in respect of noise nuisance or things like that, then and it was causing a public nuisance, then as a resident, we would be able to put in an application for review of the actual premises. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Taz. Okay, Peter. Thanks for that. Megan.
Yeah, just to sum up, really, I think, Danny, obviously, I hope your business does do well. I don't wish, anything else other than that. I think you're lucky that you've been able to get more people in there now, so hopefully that'll be generating more business. So I just don't think that although it only is an hour, I just don't think it should be at the detriment of the residents of Fleetwood Street when you already hopefully will be making, more profit anyway. And just one last thing in relation to noise about this door on the chapel on Fleetwood Street. I don't think you can only have 2 people out there having a smoke, and it is actually really loud. I don't think people, especially when they've had a drink and the voice is getting higher and higher. So yeah, I just like everyone to take that into consideration because it is pretty noisy regardless of whether you've only got a couple of people there. But yeah, I just want us all to live in peace, really, but at the same time, like your business does well. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Megan, thanks for that. Thanks for those comments. Erica, finally you, please.
I don't really have anything extra to say. I just, like Megan said, I want to live in peace and have a quiet life, really, and I just hope those are taken into consideration.
Okay, thanks very much, Erica. Okay, can I invite Daniel, the applicant, to sum up, please, to just in abstract, please, Daniel. Thank you. You're on mute again, Daniel.
Forget it. All I will say is I am there, I've listened to what Erica said. If she comes and sees me, I'm sure we can, find a level that everybody's happy with. What I will say is the noise in the street, and you mentioned before passing traffic, I have a decibel counter on my phone. I go and stand outside number 16, which is a family house with 2 young children, and when you have a decibel counter, it relates the noise to something that you're familiar with, and all it ever records is passing traffic, which is one of the lowest noise levels. However, I do accept what you say, Erica, and if we can turn it down a bit so you don't hear it, we will. And we're always there for people to come and speak to us if they've got any problems. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Can I now ask Taz, our legal representative, please, if there are any other matters which need to be raised or resolved before the hearing is closed for deliberations? Thank you, Taz.
Thank you, Chair. It's just in respect of what Councillor Ogilvie asked during the time when there was questions to, I think it was Peter Flynn. It was around the first application, Councillor Ogilvie. Can you just repeat that question? Because I think there is actually something within the actual conditions which deals with any sort of noise issues. So I can't remember what the question was. Could you just reiterate what the question was? And then if I can help, I think it's actually in the actual conditions. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Taz. Alan, you got that one?
Yeah, no problem. It was just that the original application in 2018 mentioned about the music would be set at a level that was acceptable to the residents. And all I was asking was, basically, where the residents, in fact, have they been consulted about the level of noise, and is a level that they're comfortable with?
Okay, thanks.
The answer was no, there hadn't been any communication of that type.
Yeah, thanks. Alan.
Thank you, Councillor Ogilvie. I mean, I've noticed that on page 43, point 11, there is reference to an actual condition which talks about the sound limiting device which will be fitted to the sound system, and all entertainment shall be played through this device. And if there are complaints of noise nuisance which are received by South Ribble Council, then the device shall be set in accordance with the Environmental Health Department. So, I think that deals with the noise aspect. I couldn't actually see anything else within the actual original application which dealt with your question. But I mean, in terms of sound and any noise issues, I think there is already a condition around that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Taz. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, just before I bring matters to a conclusion, please, I'd just like to thank everyone for their time this afternoon. And I also want to make a point of thanking you all the way you conducted yourselves in terms of the residents and the applicant. There's a lot of respect shown between each other and a lot of dignified comments and appreciation for each other. So well done to all of you. So a decision notice will be provided to all interested parties within the next 5 days, working days. Any party who is aggrieved by the panel's decision has the right to appeal the decision at the Magistrates' Court within 21 days. Now the hearing is finished, please can I ask our licensing officer, the objectors, the applicant and any members of the public to leave the meeting. The stream to YouTube will also end. So thanks everyone for your time this afternoon and we look forward to being in touch. Thank you.